What is the most you've seen or heard a creator get paid?
The highest amount I've ever paid a creator is 50 grand.
Wow.
If you lose your creativity, you lose your income. There's a 57% gap between Southeast Asian creators and white creators. One of our biggest issues with light skin creators getting paid more than dark skin creators and just giving them an opportunity.
I don't know if followers even matter anymore.
They do and they don't. People equate their following with money. That's not how I see it.
Welcome to the Alpha Girl podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy that you're here.
This
is
very
going to be
excited.
really exciting. I want to start off by asking you, who are you? Can we get a bit of an intro?
Oh gosh, how deep do you want to go? I'm Charlotte Stavrou. I am the founder and CEO of 76 Agency. I'm also a content creator. I do B2B content and I'm like someone's wife.
Ooh.
I'm my dog's mum.
Love that.
That's me.
I want to have a bit of a quick fire question with you. I want to know who you are. I want to get to know a bit more about you.
Okay.
These questions are very, very random.
Okay.
The first question I want to ask you is, what is the best advice you've ever received?
Ooh. I've been given a lot of advice. I think for me specifically as a person, I think one of the best pieces of advice was to just focus. Just drown out the noise and just focus on one thing at a time. Because I am neurodivergent and I think about lots of different things at all at one time and I like to juggle. And that doesn't always work out for me.
If you could ask your future self one thing, what would it be?
How did we become that girl? Because I know she's going to be, future Charlotte's going to be amazing. How did I get there? Can I streamline it?
Love that. I feel like you could probably remember this very vividly, but around 2010, we had a big surge of creators. We had that's when I think the OGs of content creators were born. That was the first time I saw an influencer. You had Patricia Bright, you had, I think it was Shirley
Biang Yang. Yeah, Shirley and I went to uni in the same city, so we were friends.
How would you describe that period? Because I think before then, we didn't know that people could make money from coming online and being themselves. And
I think you could. I think
that was the first time that people were doing it. So can we take a trip back? Can you describe what the time was like then? What was social media like? All these spaces were popping up. They were doing beauty. They were doing this. And as someone who loved social media at the time, how was that for you?
Do you know what? I loved it because 2010, I was in my third year of uni and I was going into my year abroad. I went to Spain and to Portugal for a year and I was quite lonely. And also at uni, I was even though I had a group of friends, I felt quite lonely because my uni experience was quite a culture shock.
Yeah.
There wasn't very many working class people at my uni, full stop, especially in my course. And there weren't many people of colour in my halls. So I felt it was quite jarring and I felt quite lonely. And I don't think my friends realised at the time because obviously I just kind of got on with it. But I felt a little bit overwhelmed. And also I didn't realise I was dyslexic at the time and I found uni just to be quite a lot. And I went to YouTube quite heavily for that comfort and community. Yeah. So I'd watch all of these girls on YouTube talking to us about their lives and you'd feel like you were part of it. And they became my online friends, even though at the time I didn't know them. And then as time went on, I started blogging, doing YouTube myself. I used to write for a blog called Scarlet London, which I think her blog doesn't exist anymore, but she's still a creator. She used to have this blog and I used to do, she didn't live in London, weirdly, even though that was her name. Oh. And I lived really close. I could get in really quickly. So I used to go to events. So I used to go to I went to Tanya Burr's lip gloss launch when she launched her lip gloss and Superdrug. And I'd go to all this stuff and I'd be around all of these people. And it was it was weird because they weren't celebrities and they weren't who they are now. But I'd been watching their entire lives on YouTube mainly. And it was just, I knew everything about them.
Yeah.
It was weird.
So as someone who wanted to be a creator and you now own an agency where you work with creators firsthand, would you say that energy of community and just watching people because you genuinely enjoy makeup or you enjoy what they're talking about, do you think that's kind of gone? And do you think we're kind of more so focused on monetization now that we know you can actually make a living from this?
I think it's a bit of both. I work with my sister. We run the business together and we were at an event this morning with one of our talent and we were talking about it and he is very community driven and we were this is amazing. But then we're talking about some creators that we know that they're saying that they won't do stuff without payment, and which obviously it's their job, it makes sense. But I just thought, oh, that's so interesting. I said it's so interesting because in this industry you have to play the game, and you don't always get paid to get your like long goal. So you have to be really strategic with the brands that you work with and the campaigns that you do. And if you have a strategy, if you have a plan, and sometimes what you get given is more than money. And I don't think people fully understand if you're going to be successful in this specific career, it's not always about how much you get paid. It's also how, I don't know, what you've done with the different opportunities.
Yeah. You know what I find that now that we've been exposed to how much money can actually be made on social media, a lot of people are forgetting to have fun with it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are forgetting. You come from a time where you had fun on social media.
Yeah.
Like you generally enjoyed yourself. And now that you're running an agency, how do you still continue to find that fun in social media? Like now that it's kind of been changed and it's kind of been diluted slightly.
I fell out of love with social media quite heavily couple of years ago when I was trying to navigate running the business and being an influencer, and it just got quite overwhelming. So I took a massive break, and then in the last year I've come back, not so much on Instagram. I do a lot on LinkedIn, but I said recently, like, I think I'm ready to come back. I just need to figure out who's taking my photos because I'm never with anyone. I'm always on my own. So earlier I was just somewhere and I was like trying on some clothes. I had like this press thing and I had this ice cream in my hand and I was like, this would be such a nice picture. But I was like in a rush. It was like in between a meeting that I had. And I just kind of looked around and I was like, no one's going to be able to take this photo for me. Like, I can't take it. And I'm in a rush. I can't think creatively. And I was like, I really need to sort this out because back in the day, I'd be posting on Instagram every day, had these cute little pics. Now I have there's no nice pictures on my camera roll. So I need to figure that out. So I think I'm mentally back. I think I just needed to take a break. But I find it interesting because if you are a full-time creator, it's very difficult to take that break. So I feel quite privileged in the sense that because I don't rely on social media for my income, I can dip my toe in, dip my toe out. But for a lot of people, they can't do that. So if you lose your creativity, you lose your income. And that's really difficult. And we have to navigate that with a lot of our creators who maybe might take a mental health break, or they might go on maternity leave, or they might, just go away for a little bit. And then they have to step back in and then rebuild. And that's really hard.
I think rest, especially when you're trying to be a creative, it has to be intentional. I have noticed one thing about you, and I think one thing I can say is that you're very intentional. You're very, very big on like intentionality and like being very intentional about everything you do.
Yeah.
And the name of your agency, I didn't actually know, but is related to the 1976 Race Relations Act.
Yeah, well done.
That is great. That is crazy that you named your agency after that. Can you, for people who don't know, what happened during that time and why is it so important?
Yeah, it's just a piece of it doesn't actually exist anymore. It's now the 2010 Equality Act, but it's a bit of legislation that essentially made it illegal for people to be treated unfairly or discriminated against in the workplace. And when I was building 7-6, the whole concept, discriminated against in the workplace when it comes to their race.
Yeah.
It was also a really big year for women's legislation reform as well. But when I was building 7-6 and I wanted to name it, found the naming really difficult because I wanted it to be something that meant something. But all those names are rubbish. So I was like coming up with names. My husband was like, no, like this sounds awful. And it took me about 3 months to figure out a name for the business. And that actually was what stalled me from launching because I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to register my business as. And yeah, I went with that. And I don't really talk about it that much. People don't really ask very often, which is nice that you know. But I just know that my business has like a deeper meaning.
Yeah. And why do you think it is so important to be intentional? Like, because I feel like your business actually has a purpose. It has a meaning. Yeah. Like, no matter what happens, you know what you stand for. Why do you think that's so important to establish that? Everyone's
different, but I'm one of those people, and it's very easy to say, working in the space I do, but I'm not financially driven. I'm very much purpose driven. So even though I work in influence marketing, which a lot of people might think is like quite frivolous and it's just posting pictures on the internet, actually, there's like different sides to it. So we do a lot with creators who make change. We've worked a lot with sustainability creators, with change makers, even like entrepreneurs who are creating change. We also have creators that even if that's not their their category, then like not like a change maker, they have like a deep purpose within the content that they create. And I think it's important to note that even though, we are funding capitalism, we also work heavily with charities, like not just, so we focus on talent now. So influencer marketing is a big industry, and now we focus on just managing the careers of influencers. Whereas before we'd also do campaigns and work with other brands. But when we were doing that, we've worked with lots of charities. So Choose Love, Women for Women International, WWF, Greenpeace, and that's just to name a few. And that's work, Copperfield, the breast cancer charity. So it's just naming some that we worked with them and creators to spread messages or to get someone to sign a petition or do something that was to take action. So that's like one side of influence marketing. That's really good. The other side is we work with underrepresented creators. So predominantly creators of colour, and a lot of them haven't had the same opportunities than their white counterparts. So some of the creators that we're working with, like we're actually changing lives. Like it doesn't seem... sounds quite like, I don't know, sounds a bit lame saying it, but I've definitely worked with creators where I've seen them go from, living in a 1-bed flat with their mum to then owning a house. And,
Crazy.
The money, they're paying taxes, heavy taxes, the money they're bringing to the economy, their stories then changed, their families' lives has changed. Like it's really interesting to see like we're a part of that. We're not doing it for them, but we're helping them. And I take that quite seriously.
Yeah, it must be so nice to like witness that, like see people's transformations. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that social media can actually change and completely transform your life. I saw a video where this guy said that it's like posting on social media is like escaping the matrix. Like usually you would have to do so much to be seen, but sometimes you just end up on the right person's For You page and you've got an opportunity that can change your life. When did you realize that social media, like, okay, this could actually change people's lives? When was that turning point for you?
I think from the start, because it was important to my life. I found like solace in social media in times where I felt really lonely, or I felt different, or I felt like I hadn't found my people. Like social media was there. Like I've met most of my friends on social media. Instagram is like my personal dating app. My best friend's getting married next week, and we met. She slid into my DMs and we met, went for coffee and shopping, and then went on to create a podcast for 4 years together, and have, like, she did a reading at my wedding, I'm doing a reading at her wedding. We are best friends. We've been friends for, I think, like 8 or 9 years now.
That was built off social media?
That was built off social media.
Love that.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I went to at her hen party recently. We did a thing around the table where it was like, everyone, how do you know Bianca? And one of our friends said, oh, actually, Charlotte put together like a little influencer press thing where we went to Mighty Hoopla Festival, like, I don't know, 7 years ago. And she was like, I know Bianca because we went to that. And then Bianca was like, really? That's how we met? And she was like, yeah. And then one of the other girls was like, yeah, I didn't know like her before. And it was just like, oh, and it was just, they were my Instagram friends that I brought together. Yeah. And then now we're like all besties.
Actually, like, it's so amazing to hear, because I feel like we're in a time where like a lot of people are meeting the people who are about to stay in their lives for like years on social media. Like you've got Bumble BFF. And I think sometimes these things can be a bit taboo. People are like, oh, can I meet somebody online?
We can.
Do you think you can actually?
I think you can, especially because sometimes you need to find your people. There's a lot of conversation at the moment, and I don't want to go into this, but about, if we talk about, Black women raised in white areas and then not making friends, that kind of stuff. And I just feel like in the time of social media, it's so easy to make friends, and it depends on your personality and who you are. So don't come for me in the podcast. Like, everyone's different. But I just know from my own personal experience, even though I seem very confident and quite extroverted, I'm actually very introverted, and I find social interactions quite difficult. But social media makes it easy because you're speaking to someone, like you're chatting to them through the phone. You're not meeting them face to face, and then you have time to like build up that relationship, similar to a dating app. And I think sometimes when you are in a situation where you want to find your people, but you're not surrounded by those people, it's easy to do. But some people can do that. Like my husband, he's met a lot of his friends on like the basketball court. That's like his version of that. I'm not social, so I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, you know what? I think guys can easily make friends anywhere. I think girls is a bit harder, but I do agree. I think sometimes I'm a very like introverted person, but I'm trying to be a bit more extroverted and put myself out there because I really love people. I like meeting people, but social media has made it so much easier. But I just want to kind of do a segue into, you have been running your agency for about 5 years now.
Yes, 6.
5 to 6 years now.
Just gone.
How has that journey been like for you?
It's been crazy. It's been a journey. I think one of my saving graces is that even though I was a creator, I was also a marketer at the same time. The marketing jobs I've had have always been bigger than my creative career. I've never been like a huge creator. There was a couple of years ago where I was doing lots of campaigns and that was great. But back in the day, like I wasn't like this big content creator. I just knew lots of people, so I had lots of opportunity. I think that I am really naive and don't listen to people and just sometimes have way too much confidence in my own source. So I just went for it. And that I just blindly went in. And looking back now, I would have done a few things differently. Yeah. But I think it meant because I had the influence marketing background, I knew how influence marketing worked on both sides, both as a creator and as a marketer. So I felt really confident that I was really good at that job. And that was great. But running the business, I've always found quite difficult. So even though, the campaigns that we were doing and the work we were doing with the creators was really good, sometimes like the back end of the business was a bit clunky or the processes weren't quite right, or, we didn't have, I've not done a very good job at hiring in the past, and we've had some team members that haven't been, right for the business, whether it's a cultural fit or just like ability. And I think I had to learn those lessons on the go. And then now it's made me a much better leader.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Do you think that people need to have it all figured out before they go into business? Because as you said, you learn as you go. And I feel like I'm in a period where I'm just learning as I go.
Yeah.
Do you think it's better to just plan ahead?
I think it really just depends on who you are as a person. I think I feel like I'm not young and I'm not old. I'm like in that kind of sweet spot now. But I'm seeing a lot of entrepreneurs who are like 23, and I launched my business when I was 29. So I feel like sometimes I maybe left it a little bit too late. I was living this kind of like risky lifestyle where sometimes I didn't have money, sometimes I did. It was always kind of, and I was a bit too old to be in those situations.
You think so?
I feel like in your 30s, like most of my friends had their stuff had themselves together, and they had their pensions, they had their savings pots, and I'd be like, I've got 30,000 followers on Instagram. That's all I can give. I know how to make social media pop. Like that's all I had. I think that's not ideal in your 30s when most of your peers are settling down, having kids, getting married, feeling really secure. What I am really grateful for is that my husband is as immature as I am. So we have been on the same journey, and he's a serial entrepreneur, and we've just been like vibing for the last few years. So we've been together for 10 years, and we've now found our feet, which is really great. But he's not giving me any pressure. I've not given him any pressure. So I think I was really lucky to find my person that like understood how I work, even though we work very differently, but we're still like in the same kind of place. But I think, what I would do differently if I could do it again is that I would have not done an MBA because I probably wouldn't have been able to afford it, but I would have done some kind of course. If I could start again. I do a course in operational finance or business management, just like, even if it's a few months, just to like get a full understanding of how business works. Because I had 2 accountants before the one I have now. One of them was so nice, but she basically dumped me because she said we grew too quickly. So she was, at the time when I first employed her, I brought her on, she worked with freelancers. So she worked with some like massive like superstars, like honestly like rock stars, and like rock legends. And I was like, wow, you've worked with all these people. But she didn't work with businesses like mine that has like constant payments going in and out and like large sums and having to like move things around, because we hold a lot of money for our creators. There was just one day that she was like, I can't work with you anymore because you're too big for me. You've grown.
No way.
I was like, and we weren't even big. It's just, that's not the style of accounting that she did. And I was like, oh no. So I found another accountant, and then I thought they were great, but then it didn't work out. And they gave me some really bad business advice that like really messed with our finances as a business for a couple of years. And if I had known how business finances work, I wouldn't have taken their advice. I wouldn't have felt like I needed to rely on someone else. And I think that was where I went wrong at the beginning. I really needed to own my numbers. And my whole thing was like, oh, I'm not a numbers person. That's not my thing. But like when you run a business, that's literally what you have to do. Like you have to know your number. If you don't know your numbers, you don't run a business. Yeah. And I now know them, but I had to go on a course. So for the last 4 months, I've been on a course. I graduated graduation's in a couple of weeks actually, but I finished it technically last week and handed in my final project. And it's all about like my business and my business plan. And I now fully understand what's going on. And now it's like, I feel like it's even worse. I'm like, oh no, I've got a lot to fix. Yeah. But in the best way.
You know what I would say? What I love is that is 5 to 6 years in the business. You're like, I've learned.
I think that's worrying.
I don't know, because I love the fact that I believe that everything you went through has kind of led you to this point. And I'm someone who doesn't believe in going back in time. Like I wouldn't change anything if I could go back in time. And I think, I know you could like maybe change things, but where it wouldn't give you the same outcome. Exactly. It wouldn't end up being the same outcome. You mentioned money though, and I would argue and say that I believe financial education should be made mandatory in schools. Yeah. I think money is the world is run by money, and if you don't understand money and you have to put money out to like get in a course or apply for a business course, is like, it puts you at a disadvantage. I want to speak to you about how you mentioned that you deal with money with your creators. And a big thing is in the creative industry is that brands pay creators lots of money. I'm going to be very nosy. No, really? I'm going to be very nosy and ask you, what is the most you've seen or heard a creator get paid?
Someone that I've worked with. The highest amount I've ever paid a creator is 50 grand.
Wow.
But it wasn't for one thing. It was for like a year-long deal where they did multiple pieces of content, and we got a bit of a discount on it as well because we've worked with them for so long. That's the highest amount I've ever paid out. You know, people who get like 30 grand for one talk, or they'd get 150k for an ambassadorship. I'm trying to think who I know. Yeah, there's lots of money in the industry. But then there are also brands that pay like £300 for something that they should be paying 10 grand for.
Yeah. A lot of creators coming into this, they know there's a lot of money, but they don't know how to find it. Yeah. And as an agency, you kind of bridge that gap. And you said you work with people who are from like underrepresented backgrounds and a lot of people who are kind of change makers. Yeah. How do you get them to, first of all, understand what they should be getting paid based on their following? Because you start being a creator because you think it's fun. Then you realize, oh, there's money, but how do I now demand my worth?
As an agency, you have created a pricing report. Next report will be out around the time that this podcast episode comes out. And we do it every year. This year's our 5th year. And it essentially does 2 things. It gives the breakdown of the rates of that year. So we mainly focus on Instagram and TikTok and how much creators can charge and how much brands and agencies can pay for content. So if you have X amount of followers on Instagram and a good engagement rate, you would get, and you would get X amount. So 1,000 to 5,000 followers, you'd get this 10,000. And it's just it gives pricing brackets so that people know like the baseline. And that's not necessarily the exact number that you should get. Sometimes people might charge less. Sometimes people might charge more. But then that's not taking into account things like usage rights, exclusivity, specific competitor exclusivity, and like any other, like the amount of deliverables that you have, like, and everything else on top. So it's just kind of like the base. And I think the reason we did it, because it's really important, because we have so many creators that they don't know how much they should be charging, because well, how would you know unless you ask someone? And not everyone's going to have the same following as you and the same engagement and be in the same niche and all of that. So it's really important to have somewhere that you can basically learn and know what the going rate is. So that's basically it on our side. We work with so many creators that when we first, I literally was talking to one this morning, when we first sign them, we talk about their previous deals and who they've worked with and what they got paid. And so many times, 9 times out of 10, we'll go through the numbers and we'll be like, oh my goodness. Well, they should be charging like, let's say $2,000 for a piece of content, and they've charged 300. And it's because they just literally don't know. And £300 is a lot of money. Like for a normal person, even like me, if someone paid me £300 to do something, that is a lot of money for a lot of people. And I think it's really important that we have like a full understanding of what money is, because sometimes, you know, the people that are getting paid the 30 grand for one thing and 150k, sometimes you forget that for one brand that might be all they have. And whether or not that's your value, your worth, whatever.
I don't know if you've seen, there was a whole thing happening where creators started being transparent about how much they get paid. I think there was one creator, he was a white guy, and he revealed how much he got paid. And then someone else, I think it was a black woman who had more followers than him, was getting paid significantly lower. I feel like your report kind of creates that. It removes the whole mystery behind what people are being paid. What advice would you give to someone who, first of all, I want to ask, is that a common thing? Is it common for people who are white to get paid more than blackers? Why is that a thing? Like
I don't know why that's a thing. It's a thing in every industry. Our pricing report talks about pay gaps, and we highlight those. So I can talk to you about last year's kind of big reveals. But we saw that, so there are pay gaps in all kind of ethnicity parts. There's also pay gaps between creators with disabilities compared to people who are able-bodied. There are pay gaps between ages, and especially if you're over 50. But some of the big numbers I can share from last year's report are, so there's a 57.22% pay gap between Southeast Asian creators and white creators, as an example. So white creators being paid over 57% more than them, and based on our report. And with, what else do we see? With black creators, there was I want to say around 32% pay gap. Black creators 38%, hit or miss. And then East Asian, I think that was a 32% pay gap. So it's quite a big issue. The gaps are quite high. And these are on the people that we surveyed. So our survey looks at, I think we had last year around 300 creators from all different backgrounds and all different groups. And we studied the data, and then we pulled the pay gaps out. So there's a big issue. I can't tell you why. Well, we know why. Like, there's, we don't need to talk about it, but there's an issue that needs to be fixed, and the pricing report is my attempt to try and fix it. Like, I can't solve racism, and I can't solve like the industry's unconscious biases or sometimes conscious, but I can give tools that can help creators to just set like the bare minimum. But then also these tools are used for brands and agencies alike who maybe don't know how to price, and they're coming rather than coming with fees, they're asking for creators' fees. Sometimes a creator might give a fee that isn't the correct fee, and then the brand or agency will run with that. So if you're charging a lower fee, they'll think, well, that's on you. Like, you need to know your fee.
So say, for example, I'm a creator now and I've come across your report and I'm realizing, hold on, I'm actually not getting paid my worth.
Which happens all the time.
So because I find that the social media space is growing so much that some people are actually just grateful to be able to earn money doing this, that you kind of feel like, okay, this brand's not paying me, but if I say something, I'm going to lose the opportunity. And then how do you deal with that?
It's really difficult. And I think that's why we actually created the report, because my team were put into some quite difficult situations where they felt like they needed to say something, but then how do you say that nicely? Like, you're discriminating against me because we could literally see differences. One of our biggest issues was we can see differences with skin tones. So light skin creators getting paid more than dark skin creators and just giving more opportunity. We needed something to be like, this is the issue. You're contributing to it. Don't do that anymore. And in actuality, it did work with the brands that we were working with, or the agencies, and we'd send them and we'd get a really good response. And I can honestly say that we have changed a lot of internal processes. Like, we haven't fixed it, but I know for a fact that there are certain agencies that will use the report and they tell me, and they've used the gaps as like the springboard of creating their kind of like internal policies, which is really exciting. And that's what it's for. And that's what I wanted. And I have agencies that invite me to come in to talk about the report so they can like basically understand it more. So yeah, in July, I'll be doing a lot of that and going, into a lot of agencies and into brands and just going through the numbers and like helping them come up with their own strategy of how to fix things.
But from a creator standpoint, if you don't have anyone backing you, you don't have any person behind you, how do you now respond to a brand and say, I just seen this pricing report and you're not paying me my work?
Well, there's two things I would do. So it's difficult to negotiate off of a deal that you've done. So I would just leave that, like, you've done it. But just note that going forward, you know your rates and you might have to like meet them. So say you charged £500, but you should charge 1,000. Then maybe next time you charge them 750. But then you can give them the report as that kind of like a receipt to say, I've realized that I've been mispricing. This is or undercharging. This is if you haven't seen it, this is the report that is industry standard, because we get our pricing not actually from influencers, we get it from talent management agencies. So we get our pay gaps from the influencers to have an understanding of what actual influencers are being paid and their feeling around it and the sentiment. But then we get our actual numbers for what we suggest as our pricing from talent management agencies, because that is the pricing that people that actually we know actually being paid, whereas we don't know from an anonymous survey if these creators are actually being paid that or if they want to be paid it. So this data is really it's different data. There's two sets of data, and we're really lucky to know all the best agencies. So they work with the best talents. We know how much they're charging. They give us access, and it's just a really good working relationship that we have. We're not making these numbers up. They're coming from real places. So that's what I would say to do. Just if you don't go back in time because it's too late and you don't want to kind of ruffle the relationship. So for the next campaign, just go up higher and then use the report. And then on the other side, if you are negotiating and they're not hitting the number that you need or that you want, then either meet them somewhere, because at the end of the day, there's always someone that will do content cheaper, which is so true, the biggest issue in our industry. So I don't want to advocate for people losing out, even though I think you should be paid your worth. And we've all done something lower than what we want. But I would say send them the report again and just say,
I want to take it back down to the basics. If I'm a creator, I'm hosting online and I've got a bit of following, I've seen a lot of people who have thousands of followers and they're not getting paid. How do you now get to a point where you're like, how can I get, like, how does this work? I've got 10K followers, but I'm not getting any. I don't know if followers even matter anymore.
Yeah, they do and they don't. But what I would say is, I think to a lot of people, and I find this really interesting, how people equate their following with money.
Yeah.
But actually, that's not how I see it. I see it as your audience and the community within that audience with money. So, which is a bit crass, but basically, are you creating content that a brand actually wants and needs and will pay you to tap either into your audience or to use your content style and so they can promote their products? So, or service or whatever it might be. I see a lot of people that they come to us for management and I look at their accounts and I'm just like, you can't make money. Like, I can't figure out how a brand is going to pay you for something.
Oh, interesting.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so I have a friend who now has management, missed that chance. But she came to me early. I said to her, my biggest piece of advice is your content's amazing, but you need to create one series in your videos that you can monetize, because I can't see outside of like hosting and interviewing, I can't see how a brand would pay you for kind of like access to your social media. And so I think it's really important that you understand, if you want to be a content creator, that your social, be that your TikTok, your Instagram, whatever, is a billboard for for an actually creator that I did a panel with earlier this week, Max. He said this in on the panel, that he said your social media, he's a YouTuber, but he was saying your social media is essentially a billboard for a brand to advertise on. So you need to make it easy for them to do that.
Yes.
So how does that work?
Yeah, no, that I really love that. And I just want to know, when does a creator actually say, okay, it's time to get an agent? Like, it's time for me to get to an agency. When is that? When would you advise that is that time when you need that support?
There's different times. I met a creator today that doesn't have management, and I was shocked because I was like, you've done some of the biggest campaigns ever. But then I actually thought, have you been paid properly? Because you've done some of these campaigns, but if you've managed them yourself and you don't know pricing, you probably haven't been paid your worth. So I think I personally would say, when you've got too much going on and you need someone to help you, because management do two things. They should be getting you work. So their network enables you to get more work. Or a lot of creators, when they're at their like biggest, or that kind of hot right now mode, they're getting so much inbound and work that maybe their talent management agency might not even have time to pitch for them because there's just got too much like coming in. So I would say that is when an agency comes in handy, because they can really organize everything. So they make sure your contracts are tight. Contracts and creator life is really difficult. And I know so many creators that have signed their face away without realizing forever. And we've had to come in and like renegotiate deals in the past, and it's been really tricky. But yeah, they'll get the contracts tight so that you feel like you're in control. They'll make sure your diary's on point so that you know where you need to be, because a lot of times you have to do like physically be somewhere. And some of these bigger creators are being flown out. They're going on these press trips. They're doing talks in New York, whatever it might be. So you need someone to like organize you. The next side is you need someone to just like maybe hold your hand, who understands the industry, that can just like give you those pep talks where you need it, when you've lost creativity, when you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed, when you need advice, when sometimes you might need financial advice, because we had a creator recently who's just making too much money. And it was a good problem. It's a really good problem to have. I love that problem. They're just making too much money and they were like, I'm not sure what to do. And I was like, okay, so we introduced them to a financial advisor and a new accountant, and just like help them out, because I think financial literacy is really important. I was honestly financially illiterate until I was about 31. And I thought about that. So not long ago.
Can relate though. So
yeah.
Can relate, yeah.
I think it's a big issue. We don't get taught it at school. And sometimes we don't get taught it by our parents because they just assume that we know, or they're not financially literate themselves. So I think that's when you don't need a merger, is when you aren't making any money, brands aren't coming to you. One of the biggest issues is that people ask for management before they're even making content. And it really blows my mind, because I'm like, why would you need someone to look after you when you haven't started? And I think what people need to remember is they need to create content.
Yeah.
And then off the back of that, it comes from there.
You do a lot of stuff about personal branding. So you're not only you kind of turn being a founder into something that is drop gems on your actual socials. Like you don't gatekeep information.
No, I don't.
You had a personal branding. I think it was a 30-day challenge, challenge that you did for like people to develop their personal brand. Why do you think building a personal brand is important?
For me, because I haven't really understood how to run the business. And for a lot of the time, I've really rode off of the personal brand side. So I don't like selling. As I said before, I'm not really like a social person. I like going out and like pitching. So I get really nervous and it's just like, that's not where I want to spend my time.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm really good at doing a talk or explaining what the business is in like a more relaxed way or being online. And I also know how to PR myself really well just because of the jobs I've had over time and my proximity to PR, not being a PR myself. And so, yeah, I just think it's quite easy to do a lot of this stuff, but people don't know that because it's not their world. And the reason I did the challenge is because so many people kept asking me these questions. It was the same questions over and over again. And I was like, I'm kind of tired of giving individual advice because I don't really have time for that. So what if I just did this like challenge? So I did a 30-day challenge, which wasn't really 30 days. It was like longer and shorter. It was a bit crazy. And then off the back of that, I then did a workshop at Soho House that then we did it again. And then I did an online version. And now I've been asked to do it again. So I'm now creating the course. I'm now going into businesses. I've changed it. That was more for entrepreneurs and founders. And now I'm doing it more for like people in the working world and how they can turn personal brands into like career progression. Because I do it a lot with my team. So I know how that works. So yeah, and it's just become a thing. And it all became a thing because people were asking me for it. I never thought it was going to be my thing that I did because it's not really my job. But I just kept getting people and to this day that I had a meeting yesterday with an agency that were like, can you come in and speak to 30 of our team? Because we need to like inspire them to like get their personal brand sorted. And I was just like, yeah, sure. And then I got another email yesterday. I'll see you then another one this morning. I'm like, oh, this is going to be my full-time job at some point.
I want to know, and I kind of want to like finish on like a very positive note. I want to know what good things you have been able to like attract into your life or like receive based on you building your personal brand and like being a visible person.
Honestly, so much. Just a closer example, not next week, the week after, I'm going to Cannes in France, which is exciting. And I'm going to be speaking on the main stage at Cannes Lions Festival, which in my industry is like the biggest thing in our world. Because of my personal brand. Well, it's about the pricing report, but the reason that I'm able to do it is because I built the brand around the report. And the following week, I'm going to Atlanta to do a panel talk about personal brand.
Wow.
I get opportunities because I'm literally out there talking about the same thing all the time. I think it's really important that when you have a message, even though you think you've spoken about it 1,000 times, everyone's sick of it. So many people haven't heard it yet. So you keep saying the same thing in different ways so that people know you for that. But yeah, I had so much come to me. I had just, loads of opportunities. I've been able to travel like the world. Obviously there's financial gain from it. I get to meet the most incredible people and the most just like interesting business owners and founders, entrepreneurs, like just all these people that come into my life. And I get to help a lot of people. I had a girl message me a couple of days ago. She came to my workshop at Soho House and she felt really inspired by it. And then she put herself forward for an industry award. And she said that this week she won it.
What?
She was like named, I can't remember what the award was actually top of my head, but like she's named number 20 top marketer.
That is amazing. Your journey has been very like interesting. You stuck to your passion, you stuck to what you love, but you found other ways to like explore this industry. What would you say to the version of you who was on MySpace
just posting, love taking pictures in the bathtub and taking a photo. What would you say to her?
We did it. I always felt when I was younger, and this is my mum really bigging up her kids, but I always felt that I was like destined for something. I'm from like a small town just outside of London, in Hertfordshire, and it was actually not small, but I'm from Watford. It's not even, I'm like trying to, but we're not, if you've ever been to a nightclub, you know what's up. But, not that much happened in Watford. Like, there's a couple of great people that come out of it. You've got Jerry Halliwell, Elton John, and Anthony Joshua, but not much has been said about Watford ever. It's not like a exciting place. And when I was younger, I just knew, because my family are from London, and I'd be in London all the time, like at my nan's house and around. I just like knew that just wasn't my journey.
Yeah.
That wasn't my life. And I was really into like Sex and the City and Girlfriends. And I'd look at the women on these shows and just be like, yeah, I really saw this like cosmopolitan lifestyle for myself. And now when I see me and my friends out, I'm just like, some of them, I have like pinch me moments of like, we live a really good life. I moan and cry sometimes, work is hard and, things go wrong, but I'm really grateful for the life that I've been able to live. And I would tweak a couple of things, mainly just like filling up my pension pot, but, cause I'm a bit worried for the future. But, outside of that, like I probably wouldn't change that much. And I'm really, really grateful for, the people I've met along the way and the network that I've built and the people that had just supported me and the business and, said my names in rooms where I wasn't there. Yeah. And I wouldn't have that if I didn't get on camera and talk to the internet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Love that. Well, thank you so much. This was amazing. Thank you so much.